And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast is here today. A little later than normal. Eagles practice today. OTAs, mandatory. Everybody showed. We'll get into that and more right now with Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. Just search Inside the Birds as Adam Caplan joins me now, fresh off the practice field for OTAs as the Eagles wrap up their one-day mandatory. Everybody there, right? Everybody accounted for, Adam?
Yeah, Mike. Yeah. Landon Dickerson worked. With coming off the knee surgery. A lot of guys who are coming off surgery, whether they were drafted or they've been here before, there are probably 5 or 6 guys not working because they're taking mental reps because they're not cleared to practice. But it's your typical OTA practice. These are passing camps, very late in work. But coaches will tell you, Mike, they're so important for development. They don't read into anything like the media or the fans do. That doesn't mean anything to them. This is the teaching phase. They're running a lot of concepts like for timing, and they're trying to see where players are from a mental standpoint. That stuff's pretty important, by the way. Not making mental errors.
Yeah, one of the storylines as we get to training camp, which will be the next phase here, is all the different battles that they have. They got corner, they got safety, they got defensive end, they've got defensive tackle, they've got right guard, and none of them really play out here in these OTAs here. But one of the things that Nick Sirianni did mention was in terms of the right guard spot, hey, that's one that we're going to have to find out when we get the pads on, which is what's going on with most of these things. But do you think this is a type of day where anybody kind of raises eyebrows or kind of gets on the radar at all?
Yeah, Mike, though I've told you for a number of years, depth charts mean next to nothing. I'm going to give you one that I do believe does. And it's funny you bring up Kenyon Green and Tyler Steen in that right guard position. I know we're going to have to see for sure, but Nick said what he said. But remember what happened with Tyler Steen 2 years ago. He was never given the opportunity to compete for the starting right guard job. Why? Because they handed it to Cam Jurgens. Let's not forget. And then, obviously, he would later move to center. Jurgens said he would take over the starting center job, and he just got a contract extension. So, Kenyon Green, why am I bringing that up? Because Kenyon Green is running with threes. He has, as we understand, most, if not all, of camp. So, now, could something happen in training camp where Green works his way up, getting work to the 2s and 3s, and shocks the world? Sure, of course. That could happen with any player. We're just telling you where it is. We're in June here. We're not in late July, early August when it really means something. But you got to point that out. That stuff, covering these for 28 years, I make these mental notes, which surprises me in my notes. It's not just observations. Anyone can make them. It's what does it mean of covering this business for almost 3 decades? Actually, 3 decades. Actually, technically, it is 3 decades. I started covering the Eagles in the late 90s. But when you really look at it, this is a trade they made, so they're going to give him a chance. I'm not saying he's not going to make the team, but he's got to make up for lost time here, Kenyon Green. He's a guy that, look, remember, the Texans didn't want him. There's a reason for it. He didn't perform there. He was a former first-round pick who the Eagles really liked. So he's got to perform, Mike, when we get to training camp.
All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4, taking a look at some of the little nuggets today over at Eagles training camp. You've got Adoree Jackson, Kaylee Ringo. Obviously, Jair Alexander's name came up a lot yesterday, but do either one of those two give the Eagles reasons to have to look outside the organization? Is Alexander a guy that you think they would have on their radar, or are they happy with what they got?
Their plan has been all offseason, Mike, and I know plans could change, is to bring Ringo and Jackson to training camp and let them battle it out. That's everything we've understood. I know the Eagles typically, even Mike, I'll just tell you what agents have told me and general managers have told me. It's not just Howie. The Eagles personnel department will call. They'll check into kind of what a player wants. They might call the agent, hey, just out of curiosity, what's he looking for? They want to know what the market is. I'd be very surprised if they didn't talk to John Thornton, who, by the way, John Thornton who's Jair Alexander's agent. John played for the Titans and the Bengals. He's actually from Philadelphia.
He went to West Virginia.
Yeah, I know John a little bit. I'd be very surprised if someone doesn't call John just to see what Jair wants. But what we said on our show is this. One thing we've learned from covering this business for so long, Jeff and I, You never want to pass up an upgrade. Well, Jair Alexander is obviously way better than these other two guys, but there's a reason why he's on the street. Major injury history, Mike. Major. Oh, he missed 20 games over the last 2 seasons. 3 out of the last 4 years have been major. He's had injury problems, and then you got the immaturity. So you have to. And we talked about this on today's show. We actually devoted a chunk of it, which you could find, on YouTube or any podcasting platform. We went into it and we discussed it. He's clearly better than what they had, but there's a reason why he's out there. See, the thing with Jair Alexander is he's never going to make that $17.5 million he was due total. He might make $7 or $8 million, but remember, Mike, the Eagles traded away Gardner Johnson. They didn't want to pay him his $8.5 million. As we first reported in mid-March, the Eagles are going to trim cash, major cash. They've done that. They're not looking to add cash right now, and that's the reason why we don't see it right now with Alexander. You never say never, which we've said for 8 years. He's better than what they have, but again, do you really want to bring in a guy here that has had major problems? He's coming off knee surgery.
Yeah.
That's another problem.
Yesterday we did a Mosher mailbag. We took listener questions. One of them was about which receiver, other than AJ or Devontae, does he trust the most? Did you get a chance to see the receivers, and did anybody kind of go up the depth chart for you at today's OTAs?
I mean, not in one practice. It's kind of what we knew. Jahan Dotson's the unquestioned 3. That's not in question. He's got good interior quickness, runs well after the catch. Now, as we reported when the Eagles made the trade, here's why Washington traded him. There were like 3 or 4 problems they had with him. Nothing. It's all from football. It has nothing to do with off the field. He's a good person off the field. It's competitiveness. It's mental toughness. There's a lot of things they just had a problem with. Now here, kind of righted himself. Now, but I'm going to give you a player. It's not about trust. It's a guy that's going to get a real chance here to make the team. And this guy, Terrace Marshall, we talked about him on last week's show. In fact, we had our under-the-radar player show on offense. Terrace Marshall, and they line up an inside and outside receiver. He's more of an outside receiver. Not really a slot receiver, but he can line up inside. But he's got really good length. He's way faster, Mike, than Johnny Wilson. Way faster. You can't even compare the two in terms of juice. Watch him, folks. I mean, I know most listeners won't get a chance to go to training camp unless you go to the one practice at the Link. But he's a guy, when I go to their camp, and I'll probably be at 8 or 9 practices, I am really going to watch him in training camp because this guy can move. I know why the Panthers cut him, Mike. They had issues with him for competitive reasons. They thought he didn't bring it all the time. They got kind of fed up with him. But this guy could play, Mike, and he's getting another chance on his 4th team here to make a roster.
All right, last week we did some under-the-radar guys. Smile Mondin, a draft pick there. I would imagine he's got opportunities at least to get on the field on a day like today.
Oh, yeah, well, he worked with the ones. He rotated in with Trot Jr. And look, Mike, the thinnest position on defense by far is inside backer. There's no question. They have only 5 of them that are healthy. That's not enough. In fact, 2 of them are undrafted free agents. So, that's a light position, as we discussed on today's show. That would be a concern. Our show today, by the way, addresses concerns on defense heading into training camp coming out of the off season. Inside backer, it's not just the depth, which is everybody knows that. I'm not telling anything that people don't know. It's kind of like, okay, well, after Bond, who shocked the world and became the best inside backer in football last season, what do they really have? They have Trotter, who they really do like, who we were told did very well from a mental standpoint behind the scenes, but he's a smaller linebacker. He's had very few snaps at the NFL level. We don't know a lot about him, Mike. That's the problem. Inexperience, other than Bond. And Mike, what would they do if Bond got hurt?
Yeah,
that would be a catastrophe.
One of the questions for Jeff in the mailbag yesterday was: Are the Eagles? I don't want to say. I guess the way he raised the question, the listener did, was: have they lost confidence in Nakobe Dean? But I think it was more like: have they lost confidence that he can come back and be the same player?
Yeah, I mean, no, they love him, man. He became a leader last season, and unfortunately, he suffered a devastating knee injury. It's one of the worst you could suffer as a torn patellar tendon. It's really a 9-month injury, and usually you don't feel right for a year and a half to 2 years. He's to the side, Mike. We have no idea when he comes back whether he'll be able to contribute or not. It's just unfortunate. He could have been here, Mike, In fact, he was a guy, had he not gotten hurt, probably would have had his contract extended. But, oh, well, it is what it is. Shame. So it's just – and Mondin, Mike, he's got an athletic build. He's today's linebacker at 225, over 6'2". He's at Howie's favorite school, Georgia. It's like their adopted school, Mike, Georgia. It's really remarkable.
Yeah.
Do you know how many years for decades they ignored that school? It's really remarkable to me.
Well, the whole conference, for the most part, it felt like they were just like going everywhere. But
what happened?
And that is one thing too. Is you're out in the practice field, you get a chance for the first time to see the size. A guy like Smile Mondin and see how he fits in size wise.
Yeah, that's Mike. It's funny you brought that up. I'm looking at my notes here. Jahan Dotson, medium build. Gabe Hall, long, and Mondin, thin, angular. Makuba didn't look as thin as I thought he would be. He's 190 plus. But we're not going to know what his real build is until they're at training camp when they're in pads. Until they wear a little bit heavier armor, as they say. So, yeah. And by the way, Gabe Hall got some work with the twos today. I don't read too much into it, but he didn't make the team last year. He never ran on the twos last year. So we'll look at that in training camp. That's something I want to know because, Mike, he's got incredible length, Gabe Hall. He was an undrafted free agent, but they gave a huge practice squad contract to last year.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Tuesday edition. He'll be back on Friday, and, of course, we got plenty to take a look at as the betting season will be here and all that good stuff on Football at 4. Adam, appreciate it, man.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, Adam leaving the NovaCare